not say anything about that.
Okay then, you ready? Welcome everybody. I'm chairing this meeting, or at least starting to chair this meeting, because we've got Warren White that he intends to come, but he might be late. So we're starting with a public session. Mr. Phillips, thank you for coming, and please speak.
Okay, fine. It makes sense if I sit down here.
Yeah.
It's a bit sort of
By all
extra, I
means.
suppose.
By all means, do.
Right, thank you for making some time available. This is something that's been going on for some time now. It's a question of trees in the river. And it happened last August that part of the crack willow alongside the river Behaviour split from its trunk. Although at the top it's still attached. So if you can envisage the part of the tree, a trunk hanging down there, and the rest of the branches in the river, which is collecting other debris along with it. It's rooted in Clarence Park, so the riparian owner is Taylor Wimpey. I advised Buckingham Council on the Buckinghamshire Council on the 21st of August. They didn't seem to think it was a massive affair. So I contacted Town Council, and Louise Stubb said they had informed Taylor Wimpey and chased them again on 13th of September and 21st October. So unfortunately, that didn't produce any desired results. Council advised the Environment Agency on 21st October, and were informed that the matter was in hand. That really didn't move any further there. I personally contacted the Environment Agency on 5th of January. On 7th of February, they wrote, and I quote, "We are aware of this tree and have made contact with relevant parties." Nothing much happened, so I sent them a reminder, and they responded on 24th of February, quoting again, "I have spoken to the technical team regarding the tree, and they have informed me that they have followed all our procedures regarding it, and they have done all they can to engage with the riparian owner. We cannot take this further at any time. Take this further at this time." I looked at the agency's function just to see what it was they're supposed to be about, and it was said to be to work to create better places for people and wildlife and support sustainable development. I mean, that assertion looks a bit questionable to me. I don't know where we go with this, and I say we because it's not my river, it's our river. And I would welcome any further input that BTC thinks they could make by having another go at Taylor Wimpey or whoever. I don't know what the theory would be.
Okay, thank you. So I'll take comments, but maybe
I think
would you like to respond first?
I was aware of that tree at the time, and yeah, we did everything we could at the time. But I think we can certainly try again. Directly contacting the riparian owner is probably the first call, and then I'll probably speak to the EA again about any further action that can be taken.
I mean, Robin will tell you that I took on Taylor Wimpey 8 years ago, and it took probably 18 months to get the wildlife re-established alongside the river. But they can be worn down in the end.
So we've got Robin, Sue, Margaret. Sorry, we did just to establish. We did at some point say we would be happy to use first names, but we can make it more formally.
Robin, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, I'm really sorry that it's not been resolved. And secondly, we need to get a resolution. And I recognise the email trail that you took up with them to get the plant in 18 months, and you won in the end, didn't you? To a degree, let's say.
Yes.
Let's say it was. I could say you were ahead. Much to your credit, you got them to do the plant, and they were supposed to have done in the first place. I think if you can supply the office with the details of Taylor Wimpey, you can supply both myself and Adi with it. We'll definitely have a go again with Taylor Wimpey, and it clearly that it's an enforcement issue if it's coming from their property. Yeah. And I was sat with the enforcement officer today, which was really nice for her, I'm sure. But I think that we could approach that. Perhaps we'll have a chat between us and try and resolve it, because it's falling from one side of the river and impacting the other, so it crosses both our boundaries. I mean, if you're happy to do that, Adi, that we talk together and try and see if we can move it forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Louise Stubbs has the contact numbers, names for,
Email address for them so that we can inform you.
Yes,
Because what's happened, I'm talking a lot again, but what's happened is, because with the change in the council, the people who might have been dealing with that then might not actually be the people who are dealing with it now, because the enforcement team has changed. There's new people in there. I was with them today over some other matters, but from a Buckinghamshire Council point of view, we aren't here as Buckinghamshire councils. We can do it, and can't speak for the town councillors on that. I think it's for them to say what they would do.
Okay, thank you. So,
mine is in the form of a question, actually. Who has the legal obligation and duty? Is it the Environment Agency or the riparian owner?
It's always down to the riparian owner to maintain their.
Under the land is.
So who has the power to
force
make
their
a
own-
prosecution?
yeah.
I think it probably sounds as if they've got to have a big stick with the
Yeah, I'm not, if one looks at the little booklet that the Environment Agency put out, some of you may have seen it, it's called Living on the Edge. What I do all the time.
I would imagine it's
It
the
says-
Environment Agent.
Well, it gives the impression that that the local authority can serve notice if you have not maintained a watercourse on your land and the proper flow of water is not possible.
Oh, sounds like.
It gives the impression that it's the
Bucks
local
Council.
authority.
Margaret.
Yes, thank you.
But I mean, I have to say, I found the Environment Agency somewhat toothless or possibly lazy. They don't seem to make, to my mind, they don't seem to make a great deal of effort.
Thank you very much for drawing this to our attention. It's very concerning. It isn't the only tree in the river, of course, but it may be the only one on Taylor Wimpey's land. I just wondered, in other circumstances, when there's a public company not doing what they should do, shareholders' meetings can be, in fact, I could buy one share in Taylor Wimpey and then turn up at whatever.
Maybe a long time before the shareholders meeting.
But maybe some kind of bombarding them with bad publicity or whatever may work. You know, that does work with some companies. I don't know whether that's the way forward. You don't think so?
I think history predicts it's a long road. There are some pieces of legislation under the 1991 Act, which I've just passed to the Mayor. We need to investigate those and see whether they've got any.
Yes, I didn't have time to look at legislation.
I think it's covered under the 1991 councils have whatever act, but we can look that up to see whether that is appropriate. But unfortunately, ever since they took the borough away from us, we haven't had the authority we should have. And I would say that, but you know, we can do it. You know, if Adi, are you free tomorrow, Adi, at all?
Get back to you on tomorrow would be good.
No,
Well, I
Wednesday
think
or
it's a
something.
good-
And
Check and
we'll have a chat.
Yeah, we'll have a chat on that.
You know, so we make sure we're on the same side on it. You know, try and progress it.
Okay, thank you all very much for your time and for listening. If anybody wants any more input from me, then Robin or Louise have my email, so you can contact me that way.
Thank you for giving your time to talk about this with us.
You're welcome.
So are we ready to move into the formal part of the meeting? Well, it's also part of to move on to the agenda. So apologies for absence. We already know from Councillor White that he said he was likely to be delayed.
Thank you.
And do we have any other apologies for? Thank you. Do we have any other apologies for absence?
Yes, we do. Councillor Harvey is visiting his son's grave, can't be here, sent his apologies. Councillor O'Donnell, who is poorly, and Councillor Davis is preparing for wedding as well.
Are we happy to accept these apologies?
Propose we accept them.
The next point, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest pertaining to this agenda that we don't already know about? That doesn't appear to be the case. Yeah, Robin?
I have a son who plays football, but is of no interest to me personally, but it's pecuniary because there's an item on here to do with lease at some point, but I'll declare it now. I don't think the clerk will advise me when we get to the item if he thinks it's prejudicial. I don't think it is, but to be clear, I don't play football myself. I prefer rugby, but no, they couldn't play that very well either.
Thank you, thank you. That will suffice on that point for the time being. So we move on to the minutes. Are we happy to receive the minutes of the Environment Committee from Monday, the 6th of December?
Propose that we do.
Yeah, everybody happy? I don't think we need a formal vote on this unless somebody wants one.
Suppose we agree, then we can then they'll be received.
Yeah, okay, we'll agree the minutes and they are received. Okay, so we now have the next point, the action report. Is anybody speaking to this action report?
So I need to run down a few things first, would that be helpful?
Yes, please.
So sports pitch provision, top item, that is almost certainly likely to form part of the new consultation on the new neighbourhood plan. Will be a review of sports pitch provision in the town at the moment. So I'd suggest that's best moved to fit under that discussion rather than keep having it as a holding item. If that's okay, people. The Clarence Park ramp, speaking with Taylor Wimpey and them taking a long time to do things. One part of Taylor Wimpey have now assured us that they have appointed contractors from another part of Taylor Wimpey to do the work, and they're now waiting for a date from their internal contractor to do the work, which is progress. But nothing's happened, but it nonetheless appears to be progress. Under the Holocaust Memorial Stone, 2020, to update you that Nina has removed some snowdrops from the HS2 route. Saved them.
Oh,
and
right.
they've now been planted at various places around Bourton Park, including around the Memorial Stone.
Excellent.
I think that's called saving.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And then on the next one, the Ford, we're just in the process of seeking quotes from contractors. So hopefully we're going to get contractors on site in a week or two so they can view the site and give us quotes. And once we've got those quotes, we'll be able to apply to the board for that work. The community centre survey will be on the next agenda. We're just waiting on quotes coming in. And which is why it's not on the agenda, apologies. The community gardening proposal, hopefully we'll see, we did issue a press release on that and other comms around it. So far we've had 2 inquiries back. So neither of those inquiries actually want to set up their own community garden, but they both want to get involved with existing volunteers. So we now have a new tree warden and another volunteer get involved with what's going on in the town. So it's had a positive benefit, if not the actual benefit we were trying to get to, but hopefully we'll have more response as time goes by. That's all I have as updates.
Yeah, firstly, thank you, Chairman. The point on 398/21 rights of way, which was open, was that's work underway. It doesn't give a description of what the underway is. So can we have an update on that at a future date?
Yes, although the other update I should have given on that is, so we're working it through in the office because it's a long process. The other update on that is the deadline has now been removed. So that was published the last few days, I think.
I missed that, I apologise.
So that's come, well, it's a national thing that's come out, so, but we will keep updating next time.
And just a question on 399/21. Town clerk knows my interest in the report. Can I ask that we, when we bring the report, we bring the lease with it as well? And if it's
39, which one?
the community centre, I mean,
397.
397, yeah, I haven't got the glasses on, I should try putting them on really, shouldn't I? Can we bring that through? And can I ask through the town clerk that I think that we should discuss that in confidential? Because I think that report it's got financial issues in it, and I'd please ask through the chairman to the town clerk that report comes to us in confidential with the copy of the lease. I think it'd be unwise for us to enter into a public discussion about that until we all understand what we actually are discussing, because people would draw the wrong conclusions that we were ill-informed, and that won't be that we're ill-informed, it's just other people have got longer history than other people, and that's not fair. So I think better that we discuss it in confidential. You happy with that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments on the action report? Doesn't appear to be the case. So we move on to the next point, which is budgets. 5.1 to receive the latest budget figures. Is somebody introducing?
I will.
You will, okay.
Latest budget. Obviously, we're coming to the end of the year. So at this point, you'll be hoping that things are looking like we get moving towards having spent the budgets. There are some budgets here which we're doing the usual thing that we do at the start of March to try and get the budget spent. The works have been delayed by other things, but happy to answer any questions.
Right.
Just a general question. There's often things that we are not able to have spent, either because works can't be done, that can be because of contractors, that can be because of COVID in our case at the moment, and the fact that we were doing other works. Can I seek through you, Chairman, through the town clerk, how we can be assured that we accrue those funds appropriately to ensure that when we get into the next financial year, those committed funds that we've got go as a committed item, the projects that we've got agreed to do, and those funds which we haven't got committed against anything, but they are against known expenditure, that we in some way either put them, recommend to council that they go into earmark reserves as the town clerk feels that's an appropriate decision for that budget, because he will know best.
So two parts to that answer. One is that where we've already ordered work, even though it hasn't been delivered, that's in the budget, so that money isn't lost. If the work's ordered but not delivered, that's fine. And the other part is this committee requested and full council has agreed that the items for community service, because nobody's done community service, we'll have them more next year. Defibrillators, where we're building up a reserve to cover future costs. Solar panels at Lace Hill, new cemetery repayments and play area replacement. Any underspend of all those items will go into suitable earmark reserves for them. I'm not aware of any other budgets within this committee's sphere that are appropriate for that.
Is this a point just in response?
It's an additional question on budget.
In that case, I think it's Margaret first.
Okay, on page 4, Chandos Park toilets. I just wondered, because they were vandalised, weren't they, just before Christmas, and they were shut. I don't know, have they reopened?
The ladies' side has, I'm still awaiting further repair on the men's side.
Okay.
I've got it on the agenda as well. So.
Oh, okay. I know there was an item on the vandalism, what that was. But did just specifically on the budget, does that mean, obviously it wouldn't have been cleaned during that period?
So there's still, the disabled toilets are still open, so they still have to attempt to do
Oh,
that.
right.
And now the ladies are back open as well.
Was there any sort of saving, as it were, on that?
Unfortunately not, no, they're still
No.
there. They clean the outside area as well.
Okay.
Litter outside. But yeah, it's work in progress a lot of it.
Mm. Okay.
Robin, you have
Yeah.
another question.
Just a question through you to town clerk. The monies that we accrued for the building and works here, and then there was works for the community centre. Can we have that information about, presumably we're going to discuss that in the report coming to next committee, rather than say where the money is tonight, what it is. I don't think that's so useful, but there was money which we spent.
Well, I can't answer that question. So we applied for money and were successful to do this room when we knocked out this room and created it in the lovely state it now is, but also to do a number of other pieces of work on the community centre, which included new doors, the air conditioning system, and solar panels on the roof. So most of those things have been done. The one thing that hasn't yet been done is we haven't put up solar panels. So what this committee is going to, so there is remaining money which is sitting with Buckinghamshire Council because it's old district council new homes bonus money.
Correct.
And they've agreed to hold that over till the next financial year, so have another 12 months to spend it, but we probably do need to spend it within the next 12 months. So the intention is that once the next committee meeting, you will hopefully agree a cost for a structural survey on the building, which will include a structural survey of the roof, because we don't want to put solar panels on a roof that we're not 100% sure about that it's safe for them. So once that comes back, then we should be quite quickly able to get a quote, get solar panels installed. Having put solar, the good thing is we've now put solar panels on Lace Hill. So we've gone through that process once. We know some of the contractors, and we know actually that's a really quick process. They turned up and it was done quite speedily. So we've identified some of the issues around that. This is probably a more difficult building than Lace Hill, so I think we've done it in the right order. But yeah, that money is still in the bank. Obviously, it depends on the exact cost, because that was quoted about 2 years ago now.
Yeah, thank you through you, Chairman, that's good to know that we've got 12 months to sort that out, because no fault of the town clerk, he inherited this project partway through when he came into the role, and he's been trying to regularise it and sort it out ever since. I think it'd be fair to say that the email trail and the information before he took over was not as succinct and ordered as it should be, and he's done a very good job of bringing it into order, and I thank him very kindly for that. And I think we should record our comments in the minutes that we're grateful, since he's taken over this project, that he's brought it back into line and put a fiscal vigour and a legal mind to it.
I see Paula is not in.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sue, did you?
Oh, no.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just asking. Okay. If there don't appear to be any more comments on this budget, so we're looking at the forward budget. And will you speak to that?
Yeah,
Paul?
so this is not new information. So this is just the budget which you've already agreed with. So there's no new information there. That's just reminding you of what's going to start happening in the first place.
Are there any comments on this?
Suppose we note.
Yeah. Everybody's nodding, so this is noted. Back to the agenda. I don't like to print out 60 pages, but it means I need to chop forward and backwards a bit. So we are looking in terms of buildings, point number 6, to review and agree fees and charges for the Lace Hill Sports and Community Centre for 2022-23. And we have a proposal for that as well.
Thank you. So the proposal, just to summarise, the proposal is to increase the rates by 50p an hour, except for the weekend rate, stick with 10 bookings for the price of 9, and sports pitches up by 4.5%, and review again next year.
Okay, thank you, Margaret.
I propose that we accept the recommendations. They seem entirely reasonable, and putting it up by 50p an hour rather than a 42.5p or something seems entirely sensible.
Absolutely.
Second that.
Yeah, okay. Robin, you had a
Just a
question.
point of clarity. I expect this has gone anyway, so it's a silly question to ask, because the town clerk would have done it. Have we been in our hirers and people that we're going to put, have we been in discussions with them before we raise it? Noting how the budgets stack up, and without going into the detail of who pays the most money, which isn't appropriate, have we spoke to them about this in advance of making a decision?
We haven't formally consulted them because
you wouldn't.
Because you wouldn't. I'm going to use an inappropriate phrase then, but actually it's obviously not in their interest for us to raise it.
No.
But we have talked to Sam, and she's in close contact with them all the time, and she does understand where they all are at financially. So we wouldn't have recommended something which was going to put any of the hires at risk.
So with this proviso, are we happy to accept this proposal? Okay,
I'm going to abstain. That's okay.
and then so one abstention and otherwise agreed. Moving on swiftly. We have as the next point a report from the estates manager on the thefts from Brackley Road Cemetery.
Thank you. This is just to update council where we're at. We had an incident just before Christmas of reports of items going missing from the cemetery. We were contacted by the person involved. We spoke to them, police at the time. There was a stone ornament that went missing sometime between November and December. It's the second time it's happened to someone on that grave as well, previously in 2016. And then at the time we put sort of a message out on social media just to sort of be aware message to try and make sure everyone keeps their eyes open and just keeps their eyes open. And then so straight away in the new year we've sort of got some signs made up just to put around the cemetery, again making people aware, and if you see anything, report it straight away. And then we've also had a meeting with that person, with the grave owner and PCSO up there a couple of weeks ago to sort of have a look and have a talk about it. And from that we can do some more social media posts in the next few weeks along the same sort of lines. And yeah, we're going to sort of continue to monitor the situation, keep an eye out, and sort of keep everyone sort of aware of what's going on. The grave owner was obviously concerned and asking if there's anything else more that we could do. And we have considered what sort of options we've got. We have considered CCTV and sort of closing the gates is what they're inquiring about. We at the moment we sort of decided that CCTV is probably not the best option, just because of the sensitivity of the cemetery and actually how we do that at the cemetery. Mainly because of the size of the cemetery and the area that we'd have to cover. You didn't need a lot of cameras to cover sort of the area of the cemetery. One idea was maybe have one near the gate, but again, you wouldn't actually catch people doing it. You'd see people coming and going, but we're not sure how useful that would be. And the other thing that they asked us to consider would we be able to sort of close the gates. So at the moment, the pedestrian gates are open all the time so people can come and go. And again, we decided that probably wouldn't be the best idea. I think it would be putting too many people out who want to visit the cemetery. From being up there, we get visitors sort of early in the morning, and then even particularly in the summer, in sort of the evenings when it's a little lighter, we get people wanting to visit at all different times. You know, if people are working, they want to go after work and later in the summer. So at the moment, we will sort of continue with the social media posts and monitor the situation. But it was just to let the councillors know, and if there's any comments or questions that council have had about it.
Are there comments or questions? Adam?
That's just one fact. What was stolen at the grave?
So it was a small stone ornament, so it's quite a heavy stone ornament. And previously, I think it was a different one, but a stone ornament that actually disappeared, and then a very similar one reappeared a week later, I think after being posted on social media. But yeah, it's quite unusual. It's the same grave, and obviously very concerning. And I think there's been other instances as well that we've heard about in about 3 years ago.
Again, to do with the same grave?
No, a different one. That's fair.
This is a recurring issue, and we have to be sensitive, but we have tonight in our apologies just noted that one of our councillors is here tonight because he's visiting his mother's grave, which shows that people visit graves throughout the year for various different reasons, either significant dates and times. And we could upset very many people by closing the cemetery off. I think we have to just have a very sympathetic approach when this happens, but carry on being quite tardy about the people who seek to behave like this, and really force all of us, not just the social media team, to be such, I think. whether Madam there thinks there's any logical way we can do it, because if we talk about it again, we may attract somebody else to go up there and do exactly what's happened before.
Now, approaching this with sensitivity, could it be possible that we open the cemetery early in the morning, so about 6 o'clock, and then close it by 10, just to try and curb down the hours? Or would that be too?
I think it'd be quite onerous on staff time.
Yeah.
But as you can imagine, I've got to start at 8 and finish at normally 4:30. But that doesn't cover weekends either. That's the other thing.
Margaret?
Just on a practical note, there's a house within the cemetery as well, so you can't actually shut it, and it would be unreasonable to expect the tenants there to follow different guidelines. And I think you probably would create more problems than you'd solve.
Yeah.
And if people are determined to vandalise or steal, they're going to find ways of getting over other fences and things like that. I think the only thing would be CCTV near the gate, but I think the problem is people, often arrive at a cemetery distressed in some way, and to then be confronted by a notice saying you're being filmed may not be the most sensitive thing for us to be doing, and it could be that we're actually creating more problems than we solve.
Yeah.
It's a shame that these things happen, but
Yes, our first question is, could you advise us on what security arrangements we have at the site currently? Is there something you can talk about now? Something that we take offline?
In what security, in what ways?
I suppose the only arrangement we've got up is the only entrance is through the one point. So it's not a through route. So one of the good things about it is it's not somewhere that people have any reason to go unless they want to go and visit the cemetery. And it's not somewhere that people hang out in for leisure reasons. I don't think that's ever been an issue. But we don't have any other security arrangements apart from that. Historically, there hasn't been a need for it.
Sorry, because
It's supplementary, yeah.
Yeah, supplementary, because I remember he talked about notices. What notices do we put up? Is it?
So it's just some, 3 or 4 signs around the site just saying, be aware, items have gone missing from the graves. If you see anything, report it, and just be aware. Be aware of what sort of notices.
Can I propose we have a revision to that? Because if, for example, you go to a car park, you park your car, there's a sign saying, you are responsible for your belongings there. I think rather than us looking at taking on that responsibility of security, if we currently aren't taking that, I think we should just notify people that, please keep your stuff.
So the only other thing to add, everybody who's got a plot there does have a written agreement with us, which lays out their responsibilities clearly anyway. So we have got that written agreement with all the plot holders.
Yes.
So we'll be there and then.
I just want to go back to the CCTV idea at the entrance. I know it probably wouldn't achieve very much, but could it be seen as a deterrent? And then maybe not putting up more notices as such around the cemetery, but then really flooding social media and other things saying that we have CCTV and we are aware that things have been going missing, just as a deterrent rather than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it can be looked into, but you've got the sensitivity issues of other other people using it, funerals coming into the gate and that kind of thing.
In all of this, doing anything additional, as the mayor says, brings a burden to the person doing it. My family's got relatives in the graveyard too, and so as many other families in the town. And what we have to really do is try to not cause problems to other people. And the security of it, my view is if we put CCTV cameras up, you have someone arriving with a funeral party, and that's quite a deliberately awful period of somebody's life. The thought that when you arrive at the funeral party that you were being filmed on the day that you were going to be consecrating or whatever you were doing would be something I think we would receive quite a lot of criticism for. and quite rightly so. Let's just hope this goes away. If this becomes a daily and a weekly thing, I think that point, I think we review it. But I think at the moment, by doing anything additional, we'll draw more attention to it. We'll attract people who have to it, and just leave it to our professional officers to keep the committee informed. And if there's something confidential that they need to inform the committee about, do that as well, because I'm worried that saying too much publicly on this will just, if someone's doing it as a ill-judged decision about the way they conduct their lives, we're just going to encourage them to come back. Very the same with other sorts of opportunity crimes, but I do think we seek assurance through the chair that we wrote that we wrote to them in proper and appropriate way. But I think after the meeting, if we could write to them and say we've discussed it and that we considered it, and at this time, I would like to propose we're doing nothing additional, but we are going to continue monitoring this in a proper way, so that they know that we're not ignoring their problem, because this is a big problem to that one person. But shutting the gates and putting CCTV up would be an horrendous problem to a lot of people. So it's about managing the risk. And I think where Amy says, like, review it, I think that's what we do if it becomes a repetitive thing, because at that point, we will have to review it.
Okay. Lee, I'm assuming that you've been in contact, obviously, with the grave owners, and I think we can all trust that this has been done in the appropriate and sensitive form. So if you are again, then obviously you will convey that the committee has talked about it and is reviewing the situation. Well, thank you for that discussion. Obviously, a very sensitive and distressing issue. We are staying on the topic of cemeteries, talking about the new cemetery, as undoubtedly we will do many times over the next few years. So we are to receive and discuss a verbal update from the estates manager.
Again, it's just to update council where we're at with the project. So at the moment, site investigation is underway, both in terms of archaeological survey and some other trial bits we're going on as well. We've had quite a few meetings with the cemetery planning company, so there's lots of work going on to meet all the planning conditions, and that's well underway. The main thing we've been working quite closely with them is the site layout designs and building layout designs. They've been developed and various revisions have been made with all sorts of different things. So we're progressing really well on that. And what we're hoping to do for the next meeting is bring those designs to the committee and some more outline costings, which will help us sort of progress things forward if we need to, as we're going to need to do consultation, and then they can be reviewed by the committee. And the other thing, which is starting to move a bit further, bit slightly quicker, is purchase of land is underway with the solicitors. And we've got a bit of conversation about that as well. Anything else?
That sums it up well for me.
Okay. Comments, questions? Rob.
Thank you for the work going on it, and I'm pleased that the landowners have been around a very, very long time. The college officers, so I dare say they don't work on the same time scale of pressure that we do. But it is worth noting through the chair that we're 5 years behind where we wanted to be with this, because it was held up with planning, and many of these decisions would have been taken at a much earlier stage had the planning not been held up for 5 years. Saying that, I'm very thankful for the work we're doing, but the costs built into it will, correct me if I'm right, Town Clerk, will be really come out of the survey that we undertake, and we'll get an
agenda.
yeah.
Any further questions or comments on this item? Well, thank you for the update. So 8.2 to discuss and agree a report regarding drainage. And that's for the Town Clerk.
Okay. One of the issues which is a really clue to get to the tractor we're working with on design works, is drainage. So the big issue is that obviously water will currently drains off the field and down through, we think, through a French drain. The hope would have been that we could just attach the drainage which will be put on the cemetery down through that existing system. Buckinghamshire Council initially said no to that. Obviously, drainage is a big issue for Buckinghamshire Council, wanting to reduce the amount going through the system, and the requirements around drainage are getting harder and harder for Buckinghamshire Council, as Drainage Authority. If we're not allowed to drain down there, we are going to have to find, it's not easy to find a solution because water goes downhill. That's the logical place for it to go. And making it go uphill or anywhere else is expensive and tricky. CDS's very strong view is that putting the cemetery site on there and the things which we would put on will not increase the water coming off the site. So their view is, well, actually, what's the issue? The initial designs do include what's that piece of water called? Attenuation pond. Thank you, Lee. Of exact size to be determined based on what's actually required. So CDS's advice is that to enable us to go back to Buckinghamshire Council with a clear evidence base that this would not put additional pressure on their drain, but actually their drain could take what will come off, given all the measures which we put in place, we need to do a detailed survey as described in their report. So it's £20,000, which is not a small amount of money. I have showed you in the report that we can fund that from the existing budget, and that would take us up to River 3 within existing budgets anyway, where we were only hoping, in the initial report, we only said we'd go up to 2. So that still puts us in a strong position. We have saved a bit of money because we have the budget in place now to repay. So the longer we go on not borrowing the money, that money accumulates. So we have that money we can now use. To be honest, if we don't spend it, then we are really stuck. So actually at this point, this is the biggest risk to the project. CDS are the experts in this field. So happy to take, personally, I'd be happy to take their advice on that this is the way forward.
Questions?
Thank you. First of all, I now know what a French drain is because I had to look that up on Google to find out exactly what it was. But that's good. Not all knowledge is power and all that. I'm surprised that Buckinghamshire Council are twitchy about this simply because it's not like it's a building development. The runoff is going to be pretty well identical because it's really in effect going to be a field still. So that was puzzling. Thirdly, we need to do proper drainage because we don't really want waterlogged graves. So all in all, while it's a pain to have to cough up the money, I think it is essential.
Right. Yes, I agree. I think we've agreed that we're going ahead with the new cemetery. This is a consequence of the decisions we've already made. So I propose we accept the recommendation.
Yeah. I'm not speaking against spending the money. I'm just raising some curious points. The planning went through District Council and Buckinghamshire Council because it was attached to the section 278 works in the planning, and they spent a long time holding us back on a section 106 agreement for 5 years, which was the authority, which has now got the same legal powers which is inherited from the authority. So the authority that held us up for 5 years is now proposing that we need to do some drainage work, which is quite rightly said by my colleagues that we have to get on and do. But it does arc a bit that they've had 5 years to discuss this with us and wasted those 5 years not making the council aware of those facts, even knowing full well that we were in the process of purchasing and knowing full well that we were in the process of creating a cemetery which will serve the greater area of Buckinghamshire. This is not going to just serve Buckingham. So I think that's disappointing. I'd just like to have the name of the drainage officer because I've got 1 or 2 drainage problems that I've got in my electoral division that if they're so keen to pursue this, I'm going to ask them to pursue that in the same vigour that they're pursuing us, to be blunt. But that's probably not their fault. They're doing their job. This is what they've been advised, and they're legally advised to do this, to be frankly honest. It's just unfortunate that it's come at this stage. This is something that I think for you, Chair, and the Town Clerk, we should have been having these discussions in then 5 years period when the officers were concentrating on doing a Section 106 agreement on the land which we didn't request.
I think we know your comment.
And all of that is true.
Two. Oh, no, sorry, that was, again, a gesture, so, Paul.
So it's for somebody to, I guess.
I propose.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry.
already been proposed, I've seconded.
Or you,
No,
Yeah,
Matt,
okay,
it's proposed and seconded.
Are we, is anybody against
Should
this?
we take a vote then?
Yeah, we shall take a vote, yeah. Are we, in
recorded
agreement?
vote.
Who's in agreement?
A
with this
recorded
proposal?
vote.
Recorded vote.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unanimous.
It's unanimous, in that case, we. Recorded, okay. We can move on, I think, to parks and green spaces, several items on the agenda here. 70 trees for 70 years to discuss and agree any trees or woodlands that we would recommend for inclusion in that scheme. Have you already, or does somebody need to explain what it is? Margaret.
Thank you. It's really wanting people to nominate particular individual trees as well as particular areas of woodland. And I wonder whether this should be some kind of press release so that we can encourage public participation in that.
If you like me to sort of update, so we've already asked our tree wardens to look into it and then go on themselves. Through the website, you can nominate them yourselves. So it's up to the councillors if they're happy to do it themselves or if they'd like town council ourselves to do something.
But we could certainly do a press release encouraging people to nominate Buckingham trees so Buckingham gets the good position.
Robin, and then I'll come.
No, Anthony first.
yeah. What I was going to say was if we noted the trees perhaps on our website as they are nominated, people won't then nominate the same tree, different people. Do you see what I mean?
I think we want them, so more people nominating the same trees.
Oh, okay, no, that's fair enough. So I was just thinking in terms of spreading the love a bit, you know, let's get 70 trees nominated, and if people want to double up, triple up.
But I suspect, my understanding is this is 70 trees across the UK, so we're probably not going to get 70 trees in Buckingham through. So, but it's probably true. The more people want that particular, I think. Margaret, Robin.
Margaret.
Yeah, thank you. That's just made me think, should we be identifying particularly special trees so that, and then encourage people to put their votes to those rather than asking them for suggestions, or perhaps both and, but if we could sort of have a short list of the likely candidates, that might encourage people.
Could somebody remind me of the time frame on this one? Okay.
Paul,
By the
First of May.
May Day.
So we have a little bit of time.
I want to nominate some clumps of trees because this is areas of woodland that we've got. People don't probably realise we've got. There's the area of woodland between the industrial estate and the Lember Road. There's an area of woodland there, which is the old Lember Road, which I think we should ask to be put into this because there's a lot of, it's a settled habitat now. I think we should nominate the area of woodland up within the Osier Way development to be of a special interest. I think that would keep people's focus on the Osier Way development and the ecological and the dormice which are up there. And I also think we should nominate our own railway walk because I think it's appropriate that we put that in. It is well managed, and the scenic walk because they are effectively woodlands because of the way you walk through them. And we should nominate all the grounds of the grammar school, because there's effectively an arboretum on the grammar school, and probably second to none. And we've seen with the developments that's taken place there on Chandos, on the Waglands Gardens, and we've discussed it in various committees, the loss of trees there. And we should then, I propose we should then look at estates, because there are trees, the developments that we've got, which are substantial developments, which is settled developments of 50 to 60 years, which have got trees which are in them. We should try to include as many of those in it as possible, like Stowe Avenue with the limes and things, and like the walkway up to Page Hill, which was the old coaching track from the main house in Mays Norton. Those sort of things, just for a start. The reason I say that is they're settled habitats, and the area of woodland, which you coach into the area behind the scout hut, because it's settled environment with wildlife in there, which feeds out the wildlife to everybody else in the community. Those are my first thing. And on the trees which I said the first ones, the ones by the hotel and that, I have to say that they were planted by my brother, so I will be pleased about them. My brother planted all those trees. So they've grown very well, haven't they? We've aged equally well with them. But he was a younger man when he put them in. But so those are my suggestions.
Reaching those 3 minutes and 10 seconds there, Rob.
I did it very well though.
Okay, right.
No, I was just wanting to recommend the Stowe Avenue walk. I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of Buckingham. Definitely, possibly spinny down at Page Hill Way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Holloway Spin.
Holloway Spin. And I don't know. So as you go up Page Hill Avenue, there's that walkway on the going up to
It's called
the
Morton Avenue, right? I think that bit,
Morton Avenue.
I think Robert mentioned that before, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the old walk.
Coaching way.
Yeah, even
And
between
possibly
that.
the one at the top of what was it? Is it Castle? No, Summer House.
Oh, the Spinney, you mean behind the West End,
Yeah.
behind the Western Avenue car park?
Summer House.
Yeah, some of them.
I have a question though. Would it benefit having lots and lots of nomination, or wouldn't it be more likely to succeed if there was one nomination and lots of people nominated than
Have a knockout vote.
But I think the point that was raised earlier about encouraging members of the public to maybe a two-pronged approach. If we had 2 or 3 pieces of woodland or 2 or 3 trees, and then people could vote for them, except that probably would be beyond the scope of this meeting tonight to come up with a short list of 2 or 3 of each, I suspect. So I'm not entirely sure how we would do that. You're and the town clerk is equally puzzled.
Either we just have a list, which we put. I think the main thing of this meeting, I was just putting out a press release encouraging people and with ideas from the meeting. And that way on social media, especially, I'm sure you can all join in and add your thoughts to that conversation if you want to.
Yeah.
This through you, Chair, this rather fits what we've already discussed at council, in the sense that we agreed that this is the year of the tree. That's going to be discussed and progressed after the last planning meeting again on how to actually fulfil that. So the 2 things really lock together quite well. We've already agreed that this is the year of the tree, so this is very appropriate. It supports that ambition that we agreed at full council. I do think we put all what we've suggested in as why suggest it, and then to sub-edit it down wouldn't be appropriate. But I would ask through town clerk that you assist in the press release. Deputy Chair this evening, as you were present in the meeting, and would you be kind enough to put something in with the town clerk? I think it's appropriate that you do the press release.
I'm sure we can work together to do this. Should be fine. Do we have any further thoughts on this point? Because otherwise we will move on to the idea of litter lotto. And
He's lost.
He's a salty dancer.
Yeah, he's looking for a partner.
Aren't we all?
No, I'm not.
I'm not a salsa dancer.
Okay, so litter lotto, to receive and discuss a written report from the state administrator. Yeah.
That's Nina. Who,
Okay,
sent apologies is the wrong phrase, isn't it? It doesn't have to be here.
no, but who cannot be here tonight?
So this is a programme which Buckinghamshire Council are very much pushing and supporting. Works really well, particularly with teenagers, encouraging them to pick up litter. It involves an app that you can take a vote, please, and record it. So really proposing that we work with Recycled Bucks to promote the campaign in and around Buckingham, and it's just another thing, especially, so this is something we'd do next week. We would delay it until we launch the second litter pick in Chandos, which we already agreed to follow on from the one in Bourton Park. So at that point, when we launch that one, sorry, so I'm just looking at you because I'm thinking another photo with Sue was the last one. Well important. So if you're in agreement, we'll put that into the comms plan at the right point. We'll push that. There's no actual resource commitment from us. It's just encouraging people to get involved.
Yeah, I'm very keen that we do it, and perhaps it's as we get into the summer when we open the parks of more used and whatever, it's probably an appropriate time to launch it because the use of the park tends to be quite high if we have the weather. Can I ask for you, Chairman, that when we do the comms bit for it, it'd be quite nice if you got like yourself, the mayor, other councillors, not myself, but other councillors, to do sort of a bit of a broad vote, because it's a committee decision if we take it forward, just to sort of see councillors doing things or talking about it, to try and show that we took a decision to back it and that we are all supporting it, perhaps led through some appropriate words from the mayor. You know, to sort of, so it seems like we're not just putting a press release out and then leaving it there cold. Like if it's going to go out constant, the next time it goes out, it could have a comment from the mayor on the first time, yourself, different councillors commenting about it, so that it shows that we're all working together, and it gives councillors a chance to be involved in a project. And if you run out of councillors, I'll make a comment. But I'm not seeking to be the first or probably the last. But I think other people should have the right to talk.
If I may pick up on this one, I think this is good advice generally for all social media that the town council puts up, that we all like it, where possible share it and comment on it, because particularly if you comment on it on a Facebook post, with Twitter as well, but more so with Facebook, that really the algorithm likes that, and then people see it more often. So
it just seems like a complete no-brainer to me. There's no budget required to do it, and people that can't bear to see litter laying about and pick it up anyway, they have a chance to be paid for it. So, you know, what's not to like about it?
So mine is an amendment to it, that when we do the social media, that we spread through the time that we post it, different councillors comment on social media, so that it spreads it, starting with our mayor, working our way through, so that it just show that it's more than the odd person commenting on it. And that would be my only amendment to this, if anyone's happy to second that.
I agree with Robin, as long as he does the TikTok campaign.
What's the TikTok?
Next.
Encouraging.
So the amendment's been seconded, so we need to vote on whether to agree the amendment to the recommendation.
are we happy? We want to agree that amendment?
That's unanimous. So in that case, we need to vote on the actual recommendation, hasn't it?
Yeah, and are we voting? So we're voting on the recommendation. Are we all happy to agree with it, to support this? Council, the committee agrees to this. I will get these words in the right order.
We're doing well.
Point. So moving on then to antisocial behaviour in Chandos Park, not quite so pleasant. Lee.
Yeah, just to update again, the council on two incidents that we had in Chandos Park. One was just before Christmas, well, Christmas Eve actually. The Chandos toilets were vandalised. So in the men's side, the hand wash unit, the front door was completely removed, and the workings inside were damaged. So much so that it couldn't be repaired and will need replacing. And at the same time, they also damaged the automatic door system. So there's a magnetic locking system. So the doors on a timer lock and close at night time and then open back up in the morning. This was completely ripped off and disappeared at the same time. So at the moment, we've had the door system repaired. The ladies' side is back open and the disabled toilets are back open. And I'm just awaiting the replacement of the hand wash unit. And we've had to go through, because the amounts involved, we've had to go through our insurance policy to get that corrected. The door system didn't cost quite as much as we thought. It was about £160 to repair, but the new hand wash unit, which is a built-in hand wash unit, it's going to cost about £2,400 to replace and get fitted. So it's with the insurance company at the moment. I'm just waiting for confirmation of the claim. I'm just waiting for confirmation before I order the hand wash unit just because it costs so much. But everything else got repaired and it's back open. And then just into the new year, it was the first week of the new year, one of the play area items was set lighting, and it's the plastic multi-play toddlers item down there in Chandos. So there was large plastic parts that had melted. The matting that goes in the grass under the item was all damaged, and the metal frame in places the paint was all melted off. So we've got prices to repair it. It's quite a major damage, and the repair cost was £15,800, which is extremely high. A new item to remove and replace a new item in the same place. The initial estimates were coming in about 17,800. But again, we look at the shop around for that. So I'm in the process again with the insurance company and discussions once they get back will be had about just replacing the item as new, or if they insist we have to repair it, we'll repair it. So both items were reported to the police, and the cleaner at the time, who was there Boxing Day, reported it straight away, and then we followed it up as soon as a day or so later. As soon as we found out, we got in contact with the police. And the same with the arson. The fire brigade told us, I think, literally that next morning, we were in contact with the police straight away. So there was no CCTV on the play item, unfortunately, because of where it's located, but the toilet block does have 2 cameras on it. There was a group of people there the night before, so we got footage of that and told the police about that. But unfortunately, the actual people who did the vandalism, the major part was inside the toilet. The cameras are just pointed on the outside, so it didn't actually catch people doing the actual damage. So it's just to update everyone. That's the situation at the moment. I'm just, main thing I'm waiting for is getting confirmation on those 2 pieces from the insurance company. We'll proceed as soon as we can. So, yeah,
Okay.
just to make you aware of it.
Yeah, thank you. Margaret.
I think these answered the questions I was going to ask, but it's obviously very disappointing when these sorts of things occur and gives officers a lot more work to do, as well as inconveniencing the public who then don't have the facilities available.
Some people just
It's
think.
taken a long time to get them back open.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a lot of damage this time.
Yeah, very unfortunate that people consider this to be fun, which is presumably why they do it. But
One thing, the police, are they treating the fire as arson? Because it was arson, you may be aware, there was a spate of arson in the town centre, then it drifted out to the villages, and hearing about arson worries you. You know, we had it attacks on some religious buildings in some villages and different things, and I hope this isn't going to be a resurgence of that, because when I've asked in another meeting, no one's actually said they've actually brought anyone justice for that yet. So we must remind the police of that and ask whether there's any similarities to it. As the light, you know, is drifting out and there's been a gap. The other point is, through this would be covered under our insurance anyway, so there's we'll claim for this, won't we? Thirdly, can you show me the can I see the fire report? If they sent, was there a report by the fire officer?
No, we don't. Just for the police.
Because normally I get notified of arsons and fire reports. I haven't noticed this. I've got to missed it quite easily, but I think I would have noticed something with Buckingham address on it as I sit on the fire authority. I'm a bit, well, I could have missed it. It could be my fault. So I wouldn't say it's anybody's fault, because we all have a lot of email, but I think I would have registered something in Buckingham. But then if it's important to us, it should be important to them. But thank you for you, Chairman, that the work the officers have done.
Thank you. So on this somber note, we'll move on to the next item, which is the Tingewick Road Greenspaces update from the town clerk.
As you know, we are seeking to reach agreement with Gareth for us to take on and manage the green spaces around the new site. It's been a very long process. I did have an email today from the gentleman we're working with, because he was back from leave today, offering me a meeting date within the next couple of weeks. So, which apparently he will tell me their current position. So, once again, that's not, it's not no process, but no progress, but I'll let you know the progress once I know what that is.
I think that I've had, as over a period of years, I've had correspondence with these people. It's years now, and I support the town clerk in the sense that they've not been maximally swift at coming back, and at some points throughout the process, I've always kept the town clerk informed of anything I knew. But I will be very interested in what they do when they come back with the on what their final thing is, because they have varied their position at different times from different people have given a different position on what they're willing to do and not do. So it'd be interesting to see this. I do think that we have to bear in mind that the one area which I would imagine out of all areas that they would probably want us to have would be the St Rumbold's area. And that St Rumbold's area, as it within the section 106 agreement of St Rumbold's area, it says it's got to have it says in the actual agreement, it says it's got to have a permanent footpath or across there to the scenic walk. I think that once that agreement, we have to look very carefully at making sure that that cost comes out of if we come to agreement, that cost, because it will be if we agree it at that point, those costs fall to the developer and not to us, because it's in the section 106 that they should put it in, and it's in there and cited. So we don't necessarily need to pick that cost that it should be borne. Let's perhaps say we are going to pick it up.
So I've been advised by Buckinghamshire Council that technically the S106 doesn't oblige the developer to directly pay for it, but the S106 contribution they're making for culture and leisure does include that as one of the things it can go towards. But we as a town council need to put an application to Buckinghamshire Council to use that money using their S106 process for that purpose. So there is a process they use for S106 sport and leisure contributions for that. And just if we come back up, if I just say two more things to clarify exactly where they are. So that's been my advice. Obviously, we don't yet have agreement for us to have the land, so we can't apply just to use for their money to use on land that we don't have yet, or that we don't even have a promise that we will have. I have had an initial correspondence with a gentleman from Historic England about what we might want to do. So we have got contacts who's starting to give us advice on what we might apply for when we can actually put that application in. And it would be fair to say that Barrett's gave a different impression at the outset of this project, and now Barrett's position is absolutely, we don't have to put any money because it's covered by our S106 contribution. Buckinghamshire Council confirming that.
Just to say that I respect the view, and I've got a separate set of correspondence going on this, which I'm waiting for the officer to respond to me very soon. Be interesting to see what the response is on that, because there's far more involved in this than that one right of way issue. I know Madam Mayor's, I kept Madam Mayor informed, and she's probably fed up of reading my emails, but out of courtesy, can we at some point at appropriate time bring those other matters either to this committee regarding the other section 106 and that, or whether that should go to planning or whether that should go to full council, because we do need to discuss that. I am tomorrow, I'm doing another question, but I will be following these matters up at a further meeting, because we only have one opportunity to get this right, and it's been difficult route all the way along with the developer. And to be honest, the council's changed dramatically from what it was. But there's huge, I think there's 3 sections of, within the section 106, there's 3 amounts of contributions of money to other rights of way issues. And I'm currently trying to establish whether the last portion of money is put in, but the obligations, my view is the obligations state clearly that they should have started some of the works already. And I'm arguing that case, probably not that well, but I'm arguing it because that's my style. But when I get that through, I think, can we agree that once town clerk that we bring the appropriate information from that correspondence to the committee? Because I'm very uncomfortable. It's because it's my Buckinghamshire Council area, I'm following it up. I'm very uncomfortable that at that point I think it becomes town council business, and because we have some of these things involve assets that we already own. I think perhaps Madam Mayor and the town clerk would work out where we take that at that point, and at what point we take it. But I'm not going to keep that to myself forever, and I'm very reluctant to go into the public domain with it, because I respect everyone in this meeting, and I'd rather we all went into the public domain with it together than just try and get some short headline out of it that might not be constructive. I haven't said anything.
It's already.
No, I haven't said what it is. I haven't said what it is. I haven't said what it is, Margaret. I'm very careful not to say what it is in all what I said.
So this clearly has been noted. I don't think we need to vote on any of this. So unless anybody else wishes to speak on this, I think we can move on to the next item, which is the Bourton Park Green Flag Award. Again, we get a report from the town.
Thank you very much. So the draft Bourton Park Management Plan was circulated a couple of weeks ago around members, and then with this agenda pack, the updated version was circulated again. The updated version's the same, just with minor corrections made. Personally, I think it's really good. The plan has been structured in accordance with the requirements of the Green Flag Award, so it's quite easy to map the requirements of the Green Flag Award against the plan. As you've seen, we have applied for the Green Flag Award for the park, but they've agreed, the Green Flag have agreed to hold on from full assessment until council had the chance to review and make a decision on the plan. Obviously, there are a number of actions in the plan. There's nothing in the action plan which is new to members. It might be new to some of the members around the table. There's nothing that is new to the council, but some of those have been kicking around for 4 or 5 years possibly, but there's nothing there that's fresh thinking. It does put it all in one place and gives you an action plan which you can use to hold officers accountable to, which is always helpful for members. So really the request is for members to agree that plan as it's very much intended as a living document. So we would be reviewing it at least every year, obviously updating on the action plan. And some of those things will depend on what different funds are prepared to fund and what other partners are involved in at any given point.
Brian,
I propose we agree.
what is it we are agreeing now? Sorry.
It's an award where we like.
Oh, yeah, we are agreeing that we are applying for this, or?
So
The management plan that goes with it.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, so we have a proposal that we agreed,
I would,
yeah, seconded by Sue or by.
no, it doesn't matter, I'm not
Anthony.
seconding it, I'm just.
Yeah, and then you want to comment on it?
Yeah, I just could say, can I ask that when we win this award, we show good manners and we invite the cabinet member with responsibility to show how things should be done, as I attended the Green Flag Award there and our mayor was not invited to it. And I think we should show a proper way of going on with these things and invite the appropriate people to things in our community. I felt really uneasy attending a Green Flag Award, which I'd attended several with 2 mayors before our present mayor. And I did write to them in my best North Bucks way, explaining to them how they were wrong. Doing that, I think that we will show that we are the better people, and we will invite the cabinet member, appropriate cabinet members when we win the award.
just one comment to reflect on, which is not for decision now, but we may want to think about it. As officers, obviously we're really keen to attain the Green Flag Award. I think that's a really good sign. It says it's a really good quality sign. We know we're doing the right things well. That doesn't necessarily mean we're actually recommending a flagpole with a flag on it, because we're not sure that that's a great look in a park like Bourton. So we might investigate other ways of making it clear we've got a green flag without having a great big flagpole. But that may be something you want to reflect on. We could discuss at a future meeting. But assuming we retain the award, then at some point we'll have a discussion about how best to demonstrate that we have it.
Okay, Margaret.
Yeah, just acknowledge that this was a massive piece of work that's been undertaken that must have taken a serious amount of time, and it's very thorough and logical, and as you say, it fits with the Green Flag application. So just to commend Lee and whoever else was involved in seeing this through to its conclusion, alongside the day-to-day work that's going on. This must have, it was a serious piece of work.
Sue.
I would concur with the town clerk about the merits of having a big flagpole. I think the general public really are completely confused what it is. I've heard people say when they walk over the bridge to Heartlands, go, "Oh, there's that flag all about." So, yes, I agree.
Okay, thank you.
I think we could borrow the flag and for the day and raise it on our own flagpole the day we actually get the award, because we have a flagpole. I'm sure they wouldn't mind us borrowing it and put it arrange it to come down for the day, or we have a cost in purchasing a green flag which we're not going to fly. So I think that the day it should be at our pole the day we get it, but I do concur that having it out in the park would create good climbing equipment in the evening. But I think that we could do that, or virtually show it or something. But I do think that we should have a raising of the flag at some way, and we've got our flagpole out here.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree we shouldn't have a flagpole, I have to say, but I think we do need to do something in Bourton Park, because it's Bourton Park, not the town centre. And I've just got a picture of the park run people running around the park carrying a flag or something like that, which...
I'm not running.
And then...
You did mention councillors being involved in publicity.
Yeah. Well, I could run about 2 yards of it.
I need to take out a bit of life insurance then.
But then we'd have to have somewhere suitable for the flag to be displayed, possibly in the jail or some, or in, you know, we've got those notice boards, haven't we? I know flags tend to be big, but maybe we could have a sort of miniature one in each of the notice boards in Bourton Park or something of that nature.
Robina.
Surely when we win, the whole point will be that we just promote that we've won this award, and it will just be plastered over all our social media and you know, marketing. So whether there's a flagpole anywhere or not doesn't really matter, because you always read about these awards, that a certain area has a green flag award or a different flag award. So we'll just be plastering it everywhere, celebrating the fact that we've won.
Yeah. And
Since we have, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I was just looking at the first page of our agenda this evening. We've already got fair trade and a couple of twinnies, and there is a nice little slot of empty space there where we could put a nice little green flag logo with Bourton Park 2022 underneath it, quite nicely on all our literature.
yeah, good idea. That a proposal?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, so I think before we vote on what to do when we win the thing, maybe we need to vote on the that we agree the management plan that is underlying this application, which is understand the item is. So those who agree, because it's been proposed and seconded, that is unanimous. Okay, so yes, and thank you again to
And then
Lee and everybody else on the team for putting this documentation together. Great job.
and then we had the proposed and seconded to put it on the page.
Well, could I suggest that we leave that
Yeah.
until we've actually got the award?
Okay,
Yeah.
but Adi wanted to run as well, didn't you, Adi?
I'm sure we will get an opportunity, but I think Tara is right. We should not yet vote on things that have not happened.
I'm joking, I just say that.
So, you know, hostages to fortune and all those things.
True.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, so in that case, we can move on to the climate action plan to review updated actions and receive and discuss verbal feedback from the climate champions meetings that was held on 15th February.
Right, so briefly, as you're used to by now, you have the climate action plan with all the updates on red. There's quite a few there, so I'm not going to read them through, but I'll just take questions on them. Those two of the upcoming highlights are we do have the annual town meeting in a few weeks, and the climate champions, the main outcome. The main outcome of those discussions was agreeing themes for the week's social media beforehand around the themes that we're putting out to ask questions about, to get people discussing. And then the main theme of the annual town meeting will be the climate action plan, and also the spring fair this year is the Green Spring Fair, which again we're inviting all our partners who work with us on the plan. We're trying to give residents as much information and support and inspiration around the plan as possible as part of that event as well.
Would the Spring Fair event and the action on here about local democracy week, that's an historical comment that we did, Madam Mayor, no, we did climate change at local democracy. That action's been completed. It's on there, like we're going to decide to do that again. Are we deciding to do that again?
No, the reason that's there is if you read down the update on the local democracy week, one of the outcomes was working with the schools on how they get involved. And so the Office Apprentice has been working with the schools on a recycling mosaics competition, which will be displayed at the annual town meeting.
That makes sense then. I just
she's
wondered.
going to the schools to actually pick those up in the morning. So
well, that makes sense why it's still on there. I just thought that it was an historical thing that we've done, and we don't usually choose local democracy week what the subject is. We usually let the young people choose what it is because it's their local democracy week, not ours. And we might schedule it different, but I hope that the spring fair everyone will be there in April.
So before we move on from this one, I have a problem. I was advised that this might be the appropriate place to raise an additional item or suggest an additional item. It has no budget implications, I should say straight away. And I think it falls under the encouraging local participation element of it. And Margaret Mayor actually reported on a meeting she'd had some while ago, when she was made aware of a scheme that I think Hazelmere called B Squared. So the idea is to encourage citizens, residents who have gardens to plant a small area of, or sow a small area of wildlife friendly or pollinator friendly wildflowers. Their scheme is quite or the one that they ran last year, I don't know whether they're even running it again, is quite an involved one, which meant they bought the seeds and then volunteers broke the bulk and then they distributed a small amount, sort of something like 3 grams of seed, I imagine. I've looked it up a bit of how much you need for a square meter to every household. That is not what I am proposing here, because A, we don't have the time, B, we don't have the budget, and C, I would imagine it's actually quite wasteful if you do that, because a lot of people will not use it. But that we use our existing communications plan to encourage people to do this, and that we connect it, if we can, with a way in which people can register that they are doing it. And I think the Buckingham in Bloom event is not something that falls under the purview of this particular committee, but I think that's town centre events committee. But the idea is that we would that maybe there could be an additional award for, however way you judge it. There's always a qualitative judgment as to the variety and number of wildflowers at a particular time, I suppose sometime in June. I have spoken very briefly, just in an exploratory manner, with the publicity manager at the Buckingham Garden Centre to see whether they would like to be, supporting us in this. They say this year they are not, because they have allocated all their sponsorship money, they're not able to sponsor anything, but they would be happy to promote and publicise it if we wanted to go ahead. Mike.
Yes, thank you. I'm sure somewhere else on this agenda, but unfortunately I didn't note it down. There's a reference to bucks buzzing, which I think Buckinghamshire Council is promoting, which is very similar. Because I think when I raised it before, Councillor White pointed out that Buckinghamshire Council has already had this initiative, bucks buzzing. And I think I have seen reference to it somewhere else, but I can't remember where. And we could, we're not in competition with Buckinghamshire Council, and if they've got an initiative, then I think it's entirely appropriate that we should support that initiative as well.
Yeah, I'll respond to that the way I understand it, but I'll let Robin speak first.
I think that's a laudable comment, but and that we should be in partnership with them. But by doing something, we are in partnership with them. I'm happy to second Andy's proposal. I also would like to have an addition to it that we look to the budgets of this committee, and we need the town clerk to buy a sack of seed, because a sack of seed, wildflower seeds, would be a great asset, period, because they don't go off, they last for a long period of time. And what I would suggest that if we repeat this annually, that we use that sack of seeds to give a small bag of seeds to each primary school in the area, which would be something that we could go and give them and ask them, if they ask for it, that they could go and choose to apply it. And then they would be part of what Anlia says, the competition, to see how it grows better. And I'm happy to have that put on the next agenda of events, but we haven't got the time to do that, to actually for the planting season. That's what I'm worried about. So leaving it for events meeting, we could miss the planting season because it's got to be April to May. So we need to make the decision now. If we wait to do with bucks buses, we miss the planting season. So I think what we do is this, and then link it to what's going on as a support, because we could get a decision where we agree all this tonight, and then we don't actually do anything because we missed the planting season, which is the cruise thing, which is March, April, and some things in May. Once you get past that, you really want them growing. So I'm happy to second it to get things moving, with the addition that we look to purchase a bag of seed.
Okay, so we've got Sue and then Abby.
I'd ask that when we're talking about wildflowers, we make sure that they are native wildflowers. California poppies are lovely, but they're lovely in California. I think it's important that we have native ones.
Okay. Abby?
Yes, two questions actually, and a statement. The first is, my understanding was it was going to be non-budgeted, so I would like to know where the funds for the seeds and the award would come from.
In the budget.
And secondly was, I know the community board environment group is also looking at planting wildflowers around. So if we need that as well, that might be somewhere. I think aligning with what the mayor said, it'd be good to partner with Buckinghamshire Council in that regard.
So, yeah, Paul.
I think what Annie was suggesting was that we would promote it this year, so use social media and a press release, and possibly suitable council with a bag of seeds in the hand for a photo. But that needs more expert in terms of planting season for wildflowers. We're getting towards the end.
No,
March, April.
thank you, Lee. I'm a farmer, I know when to plant.
But timing wise, my suggestion would be that we promote the scheme now because it wasn't on the agenda, so we can't decide money here and now. That we put it on that we promote it and agree to do that and look for next year to find funding to have a scheme, so which could be in place there for kind of to work with schools and get it in properly. You could run a good scheme next year, whether that money comes from the community board or from a budget we could find in this committee. But I don't think we could agree money at this meeting because there's nothing on the agenda to do that. And if we wait until the next meeting, we're into May,
That would be
can't we? So that would be too late.
Yeah, I should also say that we're not talking massive expenses here for an individual either. So, a pack of seed, I've checked it, sort of somewhere between £2.49 and £6 for a seed ball, if you wanted that. If you buy a kilo, we're talking £24. So again, for a future thing, that wouldn't be excessive. We could probably also get sponsorship for this. So the idea with the schools, I think I'd be very happy to support that. There are other ways in which we can expand this. That I'm not going to bring to the table here. So we've got Sue and then Robina and then Robin again.
There is an expert resource within Bucks Council, the ecologist called Paul Bolton, who I'm sure Lee knows, would be a fantastic person to go to work on these kind of projects.
Robina.
I just wanted to acknowledge that maybe it is too late to budget for it now to get in for planting season, but surely promoting it will be enough to get people to buy their own wild seeds. And that's our main objective here, to get people to grow their wild seeds in their back gardens. So if we do a push for promoting the idea, I think at this point that would be more than sufficient. And then we factor it into next year and upcoming things, and then we can budget and take it from there.
Robin.
If we're uncomfortable about spending £24, it's a shame. But the town clerk makes a fair point. Disagree with him, he makes a fair point. Ailey's right to make comment about where we're going to find the money to, fair point. But we shouldn't wait for the community board to do anything for Buckinghamshire Council. This has been a proposal which has been seconded. We can get on with it and we can provide information in the press release, along with what Councillor Sue said, is because we can, everyone said, about telling them the correct seeds to actually purchase, which are native seeds, because what we don't really want to do is introduce volunteer plants to people's gardens, because the bees might not feed on them because they're not native plants, so they're a waste to them, because their bodies and they've evolved to feed on certain types of flowers. So you put another flower in the garden, they just look at it, they never go into it because it's not part of the whole naturally is that comes from a country with a different animal that fertilises it. So I think Councillor Everton's absolutely right that we need to put the information about what native seeds are in the press release, encourage young people to do it. It's something that some of us do anyway in our gardens. And I love doing it in the garden. I'm having not a great deal of success, I must say, but I keep trying every year to get some more wildflowers growing. got them in a tray at the moment as a way of doing it. But I think it's a brilliant idea, and we should get on and do it tonight and promote it, because by the time we get it out there, and we can keep promoting it, and then when the Environment Committee of the Community Board, which Adi chairs, don't you, Adi? And we'll do something there as well. And then we're all moving together, and the bus thing's going together. And the more we say about it, because with the amount of lost habitat for bees, which there is in this country, and the fact that they're introducing nicotine chemicals are being given the freedom to be used again in agriculture, which is a horrendous thing because they actually damage the bees. We need to create somewhere for them to feed. Otherwise, we'll lose our bees. If we lose our bees, we will starve. So it's actually a really good thing to raise, because without bees, the whole world will actually starve. So, so we do need to do that.
Okay. So, as I said, my proposal is then that we encourage this, and that we can we at this meeting also encourage that there will be a smaller, an additional category in the Buckingham in Bloom competition to incentivise this.
I'll say as chairman of events that I'm very happy to put that on the next agenda to career category, because we won't be awarding them prizes till after the meeting. And what I would like is Councillor Everton's on my committee is to take part in the species of plants that we do in that, and that we wouldn't judge anyone with the wrong species above someone who's got the right species in it. And I think that's important if we're going to get this right. And then later on, we'll link it with Adi and what they're doing there.
We can think of more complex schemes in future years if we feel that this, is going in the right direction.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Let's just do it. It's the right thing to do. I'm just ashamed we can't come up with 28.
Yeah, well, next year. So let's, can we vote on this? Is everybody agreed that we should try it on this,
to promote?
Yeah.
That's unanimous.
Yeah. So, and then we have a separate conversation on exactly how we're going to do that. Yeah.
And you'll make sure it's on the agenda.
Well, no, Paula will make sure it's on the agenda.
Paula will make sure it's on the agenda. Does it pass the buck?
No, it's called delegation in the chamber.
So thank you very much for that, and my apologies for not being early enough to put it on the agenda properly. I don't know where the week's go, quite frankly, these days.
Very quickly.
Yeah, somewhere. Are we ready to move on from the climate action plan to the next item on the agenda? Yeah, okay. Buckingham Railway Walk Volunteers. So we would have a written report from Nina, I think. Is there a summary of that?
Yeah, so the headline is the Railway Walk Conservation Group are really good, they're really active. I said they're attracting members, they're not losing members. Coming out of the woodwork a bit again since COVID, but they have been doing stuff all the way through. We have a small budget that supports them. The issue is the current chair and coordinator of the group has stood down, understandably, after a long time of good service, and none of the current group are prepared to step up and carry out that role. So somehow we need to find a coordinator to make that work happen. So it's thoughts about best ways forward with that.
Can I propose that until the appropriate persons come up, because it really fits in with what Nina does as a temporary measure, that because it actually usually meets before this meeting, whether we can do it. Town clerk's shaking his head.
It involves weekend work essentially.
Okay,
so
which case it's inappropriate.
For staffing capacity, it's difficult. Sorry.
So
The role is really quite complicated. The person's got to, it's not just making out a load of people. You've got to understand what work needs to be done, and to understand the ecology of what's going on. You've got to be able to do the safety briefings and know what's going on there. And I think the person who leads it does actually need to be trained. It's not something somebody can just rock up and do. I actually work with who actually look after the other half of the railway walk from time to time, and other things. And it is quite a complicated business to do it. I have volunteered on the railway walk, the other half with the railway walk volunteers, and the problem for me was that it happened on Saturday, just when I had to go shopping. So I'm not really quite sure what that. This group's been going for quite a long time, and again, it's Paul Holden, who is now the ecologist, who has got a lot of knowledge of how that was set up and how to do it. And again, he might be able to give some pointers.
Thank you, Ravina.
I just wanted to understand, so this is a volunteer role, and are we supposed to, I don't know, put out an advert or something for it, or can the group?
Well, I mean, we can certainly help with that side of things.
Right.
Get the word out there that someone's wanted.
So the group who don't want to take on that position, are they the people who meet every Saturday and?
Yeah. They've got, they're quite, when they're up and running, pre-COVID, they're a good active group there.
Okay.
They just need someone to oversee and coordinate.
Right.
One thing I forgot to say was that there's also the group that do the river fly survey, and they're allied to a group called TCB. And I wonder if they are also somebody who could help with advice on how to set the group up the way it needs to go.
Yeah, they're all people I'm in contact with and discuss it. But there could well be a sort of a monetary impact on, if you need to employ someone to run those groups. It won't just be a one-off, it'll be a yearly sort of cost for someone to coordinate and supervise it. From experience on the river warden scheme, it's quite a struggle to get funding for on a long-term basis.
I was meaning, I wondered if TCB could help with training up a volunteer who might be persuaded to take on the leadership.
There's certainly something I can ask with. There's a new person taking over from Ruth who ran the river warden scheme based in Bedford, I think. Certainly a conversation I'm going to have with them when they start their new role. But how we do that without funding, I don't know.
Andy?
Yes, it's my understanding that we have a group of volunteers who meet regularly, and there's nobody willing to take leadership of that group. I think what we need to find out is the reason why. Maybe we should get either, I don't say anybody, but the mayor could assign someone to meet with that group and find out what issues are. And if, based on what Councillor Herfinton is saying, it's an issue of training. Maybe they feel they haven't got the expertise to take up the role. Maybe that's what we could be thinking of doing as a form of assistance. So, but there has to be a reason why nobody, if you've got a group of people meeting or turning up regularly and none of them have leadership, there is something there. Maybe they feel they don't have the competence to do it. So maybe we can help that way.
I think that Neil, correct me if I'm wrong. I think of the people currently in the group, there just are people who they just don't want that level of responsibility. They're happy turning up and doing something, but those people, for whatever reason, aren't going to take that on. But certainly in terms of making it really clear, if we're looking for someone that we can access and provide training for someone who does want to take it on, I think we need to make really sure that we've got that. And if we do a press release, for example, on seeking someone, before we do that, make it really clear that training's available, support's available, and get as much of that package in place as we can beforehand.
I just want to find out, could it be like a shared role? So if it's too much for one person, as it's a Saturday, and all the planning and organisation. So if it could be a job share, that maybe might put more people forward.
Oh, so I think she's covered it.
Okay, fine. So we've got Robin and then Sue again.
But the role splits down to legal and administration. This takes place on town council's land. So the group, where it comes to administering and the day-to-day paperwork of it in the short term, it's produced in the previous, it's produced so much change on the railway walk that now it would just be a dark, damp place without the wildlife, flowers and stuff that's gone in there. So I think we should write to the person who's done it in regardless and thank them for their dedicated service, because that has improved it. And that might be a good way of attracting somebody else to do it in a strange sort of way, because I think we should, with their permission, do a bit of a thank you for them about whatever and how they've changed in their tenure with the group, if we're going to advertise for somebody to do it. But I do think we have a responsibility to continue the administration stuff on temporarily until we get someone in place, because if they don't do the stuff and plan to do the stuff, the works that they do and the works that they've planned, that will have a negative effect on the projects they've already started in. Because they've got, if you watch what they do, you can see they actually have got a programme of work over a long period of time to change some of the areas back into meadow and not into sycamore in some cases. And so I'd like to ask for the town clerk, we can actually support the administration side of it temporarily. The business on a Saturday, when they do it, is the issue. Someone who's there to have the experience and the guidance to sort of administer it, because people are going to be using tools and implements, and there's all that business around it, which is where a shared role point, which I thought was a good suggestion, is sharing it between two. And this is a temporary measure to share it with the administration to start with, while we get a person trained to do that, and then gradually move it back to them. Because the great thing about it, why it was so successful, is it was separate to the council, and it was initiatives from them supported through us. But I think to keep it going, we have to sort of button it up a bit, because we could be discussing this in 2 years' time, why it didn't go and why it failed. And we don't want to be doing that, because we have given them grants over the years, so we have backed them financially with money to be able to do what they do. So we have a financial implication in it, and if we don't do that, we've got to use that money to actually then allocate our own green spaces teams to do that. And I don't think you can quantify the cost of that very easily. So we do have to sort this out in some way. So taking on Robina's proposal to split the role, I'm suggesting that we do the administration now while we sort out a trained person, because it's not that, it's just the sort of like the things that they're going to be doing. Somebody's got to do it. It is our land and they are on our property, and we give them rights to operate on our property. I'm not saying we take it on permanently, but we can't let it fail. So I don't know whether town clerk's looking daggered at me, which is not unusual for the town clerk to look daggered at me. But if he thinks that's the wrong way to approach, he's got to explain what the alternative is. I can't think of one. And I've taken on Robina and Ada's point about keeping it going on that. And I think that's a tenuous meeting. There's nobody in this council, the members, qualified to do that. And to put one of ourselves forward for that would be wrong, because it gives the idea that you're qualified and you're not.
So I'll let Paul respond to that. And Sue, do you want to respond to that straight away?
I think all of the volunteers that are working on it, they're all really, really passionate and hardworking. It's not a problem getting volunteers. It is just a heck of a responsible job. Nobody wants to lead it. And in fact, the point about sharing, it was effectively a job share before, because it was Mr. and Mrs. Manning. So you know, they were supporting each other doing this, and they've done it for years and years, and they're just tired now. And some of the volunteers, I mean, Michael Hunt, he's utterly passionate about supporting wildlife and working hard, but you know, he just doesn't want to lead it. So it's a tough role to try to fill.
Yeah. What I can't do is commit staff hours to doing something without actually having a plan of how we're going to fund that and make it happen, because staff is specialist in the title already. I know it might not seem like much, but actually it's hours every week, and hours every week have to come from somewhere. We've got staff already building up toil and little time, so we don't have capacity easily to do that. I mean, we're absolutely committed to making it work and finding a way of making it work. They do really good work. We've got an annual budget for them. They from a hard nose point of view, they do save us a lot of money by the work they do, but actually they put a passion and effort into it, which we never would have the ability to do. So absolutely, we need to work with relevant organisations to see what support we can get, find appropriate ways of trying to recruit the right people into the role. If there's stuff we have to cover in the short term, we might find ways of doing it, but I wouldn't commit us to anything. And those kind of short-term arrangements have a habit of becoming long-term. So as soon as you kind of say you're going to take something on, the next thing you know, everybody thinks if they look the other way, then that's it, you're stuck with it. So I'm really reluctant to put ourselves in that position. But we are determined to make it work. So I guess, really, I think coming out of this meeting, we'll talk to the partners we've talked about, we'll keep in touch with the group, but perhaps have some informal conversations. We'll talk about it in the office and come back. If we haven't got anywhere by the next meeting, we'll put it back on the agenda and have another go round. But let's see if we can.
And Margaret,
Yeah, just, I think it came out of the previous Environment Committee. I did actually write to Mr and Mrs Manning, and they live fairly near me, and I sometimes see them when I'm out and about, and I've spoken to them as well and reassured them it's not a life sentence when you take something on. And it may, some voluntary roles do feel that at times. And I guess that may be why there are some people who are reluctant. They are, they're to be commended for the work that they've done and the work that they're continuing to do as well, because the work has continued. And we must make sure we do fill this role in one way or another and keep it on the agenda until we've got suitable people in place.
We're not going to go out with this lot. We do charge, but we're really cheap, except for when we work for the ABDC, as used to be, give us a huge big grant. And so when we work on their pieces of land, they're not charged, it's payback. So we're really dirt cheap. Maybe an idea would be to, when we're, well, if the person who runs this is agreeable, maybe when next we're doing some work on Wednesday at the Railway Walk, we invite people from Buckingham to come along and see what it's like and see if they could set up something similar.
That's a really good
I'll
idea.
give you the link.
Yeah.
Noting the town clerk's reluctance to commit hours and just tend to, I share his concerns about the permanency, but I do. But I would like to just make the point that it's all very well saying we can't commit the hours. What we haven't done is quantified the investment. When I say we haven't quantified the investment, we've got no figures here that we've audited over the years of the hours put in there and what those hours would be valued at. And maybe going forward, this is something that we have to value. If anything, we do anything for charity, they're always sort of put down, well, that's free. But we should put something, a notional amount of work they put in against what that would be if we had to pay to do it. Because it could be a point where we have to pay to do it. We don't know the cost of that, the amount of works and trees and stuff done over the year. It comes, we'll then have to come back to the environment budget and the funds will have to be found to do this work, unless we're going to walk away from 20 years of project that I've seen in my time as councillor, over 20 years of work on this scheme. So I would like to ask that we start to record roughly what the hours they put in, the time they put in, whatever, so we can start to accumulate the amount of money in, not in monetary terms, but in times. Because we do always undervalue people who do stuff for nothing, and it should have a value, and we should know what that is, because if it comes a day we have to do it, we won't have the money. And is the town clerk willing to look at that going forward? I don't think we can do it from now.
Yeah, we'll have to think.
I think we have to start from now.
A lot of what we do. Actually.
Yeah, but I think, with charity people who do volunteers, and importantly, after just doing that, I think the mayor was supporting my principle that we had to really thank these people for their hard work, and I think the mayor's the person to undertake that. perhaps as because she's mayor of the council, we should write to
Done that
them.
already, that's already been done.
You've done it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you had it. I missed it.
already said.
She said that twice already.
Well, I missed it. I do that sometimes. I wasn't really listening to that. I do apologise. Fantastic. But are you going to say you're going to look at that going forward?
We will have a look at it.
There's a cost in looking at it, you see. The cost in looking at it.
There's a whole set of volunteers we work with, so we do it properly, so we can have a.
Well, maybe some reports should go to another committee, resources, to see how we do it, because there is a cost in doing it.
Yeah.
But we can't undervalue these people.
No, absolutely.
So, somewhat unsurprisingly, it doesn't appear like we have found the magical solution to this problem. If there was such a thing, we'd probably already have come up with it. Although it seems to me that Sue at least has a possibility of providing some input or some conversation, and I saw Paul, the town clerk, nodding there, sort of that I imagine you will have a conversation.
I think we should thank Sue for her contribution, because she's probably more knowledgeable about these things than the rest of us, to be frankly honest. A minute, our thanks for Sue's contribution.
Indeed. Do that. I don't think there's anything for us to vote on. So, obviously, if you have any really bright ideas on it, suddenly, you move out and I've got it, this is what we're going to do, then I'm sure Paul will want to hear about it. And then the next agenda point is to note the minutes from the meeting of the Buckingham Community Wildlife Project held on the 6th of December 2022. And since it is now nearly 9 o'clock, I feel like unless somebody has.
No, we have to next potential item.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not saying we're finishing it, but I suggest that on this one, unless somebody has a burning desire to discuss it, we'll just agree it, yeah?
Duly noted.
Yeah, so we're all happy to note these and finish that point. No, I wasn't going to finish, I just said, let's move on. And then we have a point on news releases.
I think we've done them throughout the meeting, Chairman.
I believe so, we have, so that unless there's anything else that we need to do, there are no chair's announcement. I think I would know if that was the case. And we note, I believe, the date of the next meeting as Monday, the 25th of April. And then I think we close the public meeting.